Hi guys, it's been a long time. If this is your first time, welcome. If this is not your first time, welcome back. This is a Stitch with Me. My name is Crystal Rowe. Get a drink of water. I should have done this before I hit record. So, it's March. I think it was sometime maybe in January since I last filmed. I think it was after the first year, but I'm not sure. So, before I get started, I'm going to tell you what I'm working on. I am working on a Big Creek Photobooth Love Happens. This was a Valentine's Day start for me. It was a very, very small start. I think all that I got done on Valentine's Day was just a little bit of the border. So, I've been working on some smaller projects, and I really want to get this done so that I can decorate with it next Valentine's Day. So, Jennifer said, Jennifer is my buddy, and she watches, and she said on Instagram, when I said, I posted 2 different patterns. I said, which one should I start for Valentine's Day? And she said she suggested this one because she said it reminded her of me and my husband. So I thought that was really cute. So now every time I look at it, I see me and my husband. So I thought that was super cute. I ended up starting both of those patterns. They're both smalls. And I already finished one. And I hope I can do a floss tube and talk about that one and show a finish. So we'll see. But today, I'm just going to be grateful to film this. So, I have a lot to talk about. I'm just going to tell everybody kind of what's been going on, where I've been. I know I did post a couple things on YouTube, on Instagram. So, I think some people know, but I'll just kind of give you the rundown of what's been going on as I stitch. So let me find my place and then I'll get started. And of course, as always, my dogs are going to be noisy. I have my front door open for light because it's later in the day here. It is almost 1:30, so I just have a little bit of time before I have to go run an errand and pick up Parker from school. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to try to film a Stitch with Me. This probably isn't the best project to do for Stitch with Me because I have to actually pay attention to the pattern, but it's not too hard. I'm just using threads that I have. Some of them are the called for, some of them aren't. So, it's such a tiny pattern, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so, did I already mess up? Yep. I have to get back. Maybe I should just work on the border. That would probably be easier, but I really want to do, I wanted to do each one at a time, each little scene. So, we'll see. I'll fix the stitch. Alright, so, alright, my dogs can't act right with the door open. It's just, my cat is on the front porch. One of my cats, she likes to sit on the front porch, and they just started barking like she was a panther out there. So, yeah. Alright, so let me get back to what I was going to say. Alright, so I mentioned that I was starting online school and my mom was having surgery. So I didn't know if I was going to be able to film Stitch with Me's. I kind of figured I might miss a floss tube or two, but then I would get back into the routine of that. But that didn't happen. So, on January 10th, I started online school for medical coding and billing. So I'm taking 4 classes. And then on January 11th, my mom had spinal fusion surgery. So what we expected with that surgery was that she would go home in a couple days, probably two nights and 3 days in the hospital. And I would need to stay with her for a couple nights at least, overnight, and then probably a week during the daytime hours because of her being on narcotic pain medicine because she's very sensitive to pain medicine, and she has a risk of falling and stuff like that. So I took her for surgery that day, and it was like 5:30 in the morning, and the surgeon came out about noon and said that the surgery had went well for the most part, but she had lost a lot of blood, and so they had to stop what they were doing, and they couldn't complete everything they did, but they got done what their main goal was. And he said she was in recovery, and it would be about 90 minutes, and they would move her to her room, like regular room where we spend the nights. So I waited, and nothing was happening. And then finally, after a couple hours, the nurse called me and said, "Your mom's having some problems. We can't keep her blood pressure. Her blood pressure was too low." She said, "We're going to keep her in recovery for a while longer and see, if we can get her blood pressure fixed." So I said, okay. So, I still hadn't been able to see her or anything like that. And some time goes by. And by this time, it was about four hours after surgery was complete, after I talked to the surgeon. And the nurse called me back, and she said, "Your mom is going to have to spend the night in the ICU because we cannot get her blood pressure up." So I said, okay. So they admitted her to ICU, and finally about 5:30, she was in ICU, and they let me go in there and see her. So I walked in the ICU room, and she was just like, out of her head. And it was funny because she asked to see her dog. It's like the first thing she said was, she wanted to, first she thought I was like a nurse or a doctor because I had a mask on. And then when I told her who I was, she realized she could barely talk, but I could make out what she was saying. She asked to see her dog, Jasper, her little Yorkie, who I was dog sitting. Well, that day he was at my house, but, I dog sat him over while she was recovering. So, she was in ICU, and she was on morphine, so she was really doped up. And I went home that night when visiting hours were over, and I came back the next morning, and they said, we got her blood pressure stabilized, so we're going to move her to a regular room. So I said, okay, that's great. And she was still doped up on morphine. They gave her a dose of morphine while I was there that morning about 8 o'clock. And they moved her to a regular room, and they're like, she should be coming out of that morphine. She should be waking up. The doctor wants her to sit up in a chair, blah, 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 blah. So, normally at this point, a patient would already be walking up and down the hallway. Well, they barely got her to a chair, and I had to feed her, I think I got her to eat 3 bites of a yogurt. And she was so incoherent, and they're like, yeah, that morphine's really got her knocked out. And, so, she didn't get any therapy or anything that day. She was just kind of like a zombie. So I spent the day with her. She mostly slept, and when she was awake, she really didn't make a lot of sense. She would just say my name and ask about her pets and stuff like that. So the third day, I thought, well, she's going to be, because normally the third day she would be going home. The third day, I was like, well, I'll bring her, because she doesn't like hospital food, and she wasn't on a restricted diet. So I'll bring her a McDonald's biscuit and a McDonald's coffee, because she loves coffee. And, that'll perk her up. And I walk in the room, and she's not, there, cognitively. And she couldn't really talk to me, and there was no way she was going to eat a biscuit. I mean, she was completely out of it. And I asked the nurse, how does she do through the night? And they're like, well, she's just really, really doped up from that morphine. And she said, they had not given her any pain medicine. So she was in pain, but she couldn't tell them because she was so messed up. And I said, So she went from morphine to nothing. And I said, no, she hasn't had morphine since she was in the ICU, which was 24 hours before. And I said, that's not normal for my mom. She, she doesn't act like this. They basically thought she was a confused old lady, okay? And these nurses, they're doing the best they can. They were short-staffed because of COVID. They're young. They're on a floor that is for, like, back and, like, joint surgeries. It wasn't a floor for more intense patients. So they don't see this a whole lot. She wasn't hooked up to a lot of monitors or anything. And they just thought she was doped up. So I said, no. Okay, I'm sure I'm doing right. 1, 2. I said, this isn't how my mom normally is. Normally she can talk and, like, carry on a conversation and stuff like that. If she couldn't tell them her name, nothing. So they had this nurse who's like a special nurse for the surgeon come in, and she started saying, Miss Inman, what's your name? My mom couldn't say her name. She couldn't say where she was at. She basically, like, they'd say, what's your name, your birthday, where you're at. She would pick one thing, like her, she would say, like, her middle name's Jean. She would say Jean. And she would just say Jean. Like, the next 20 questions, she would just say Jean. And she couldn't say no. She could only answer yes. So, they could say the sky's purple, and she would say yes. Like, she couldn't say no. And, it was, like, 10 minutes after that. This, like, the surgeon, nurses, the, EKG, okay, they had them do EKG. They started saying she could have a stroke because of the way she was acting. It was like everything all at once. Like, in 10 minutes, her whole room was rushed with different teams of people. They did x-rays of her in the bed. They said she could have swelling on her brain. And they were trying to figure out what was going on with her. They didn't know if she was having a heart attack because she had heart attack symptoms. So they immediately did blood work. I mean, it was like everything. And I was absolutely freaking out. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know if I was losing my mom or if I was just losing her, like, cognitively. I just didn't know. And so finally, this was probably about 20 minutes later, one of the PAs that did her surgery, he came in and he said that she had lost 5 times. They thought she had lost a certain amount of blood, and she had lost 5 times that amount of blood during her surgery. So basically, when they recorded her blood loss, there was 2 different amounts. There was like an initial amount and then a later amount. She was treated for the initial amount. So she didn't have enough blood going to her brain, which is why she was so out of it. And they thought she was just doped up on pain medicine. But she wasn't. She was just, her cognitively, she wasn't functioning correctly. So they ordered a blood transfusion. She also had an infection. They had to put her on antibiotics. And there was some other complications. And they kept running blood work to see if she had a heart attack, because she had some symptoms of a heart attack, but because she has heart disease, some of that was would routinely show up in the blood work. I messed that up because I was talking. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I gave her too many. I'm just going to do this part because I can't talk. Alright, so that day they gave her blood. They did all that. And she started being able to answer their questions. And by the next day, she was pretty much talking her normal self. So thankfully, she didn't have any kind of long-term damage from it. they were able to fix it with the blood transfusion. But it was an error on, on their part, because of the blood loss. So, thankfully she came out okay. So, because of that and because of her infection, she was in the hospital for a week, and I asked them to please send her to rehab because she was not able to do things for herself. And I told them, I said, I can only stay a couple nights because I have an 11-year-old with autism and I can't leave him. And I said, can she go to rehab, the rehab hospital, which is totally normal. Like, it's not out of the realm of things. I used to work there. I have a friend who's a nurse there. Lots of their patients go to that rehab hospital when they're not able to go home. Well, the surgeon said no. They said, with me being there a couple of nights, it'll be fine. Well, I knew my mom. I knew a couple of nights it wasn't going to be fine. They sent her home, and she basically needed 24-hour nursing care at home. And that nurse was me. So her aide did come back, and her aide would clean the house. So that was one thing I didn't have to do, was I didn't have to mop or sweep or dust. I just did everything else. So she would do laundry while she was there too. So her aide is wonderful. I mean, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And I'm so thankful that she would be there because, I mean, that's a huge help. And, but anything a nurse would have to do in a hospital, I did. So, it was hard because I couldn't go home. I had to stay with her, and I wasn't getting any sleep because it was like having a baby. Like, I would go to sleep, and an hour later, she would need me to take her to the bathroom, or I would need to give her medication or anything like that. So I was losing my mind. I was exhausted, losing my mind. It was really hard. And it took a long time. It took about what we thought was going to be a couple days. It took about 3 weeks. Basically, I hardly ever got to see Parker. I would pick him up from school, and either my husband would sit with him, or my mother-in-law would sit with him, and then I would come home, do his homework, and go back to my mom's. And my husband was doing everything else in the evenings, or my mother-in-law was here while my husband was working at his mayor job. And it was hard. So, and I would have to come home. My husband leaves for work at 5:30 in the morning. So I would have to leave my mom at 5:30 in the morning, and I had a camera, so I would just be like, do not get up out of bed. I would have to leave at 5:30 a.m. and I would come home and get Parker ready for school. And that's when I would do, take my own shower or whatever. I would take Parker to school, and then I would go back to my mom. So I had to leave it during that time because I just didn't have a choice. My husband couldn't stay. He had to be at work. And I didn't have a babysitter for 5:30 in the morning. But I had bought indoor security cameras for that reason. So, yeah. But anyway, after about 3 weeks of that, I was able to leave her overnight. And I would just keep that same routine, but I would come home at like 9:30 at night or 9 o'clock at night. So I was able to sleep in my own bed and do nighttime routine with Parker. And then slowly we got to where I could come home while her aide was there from 8 to 11 in the morning. And I would come home and I would do anything at my house. And let me count this. 23, and I need, did I count that one? I need 28. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Okay. Take a break and do this. So 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. Alright, I'm going to count one more time to make sure I didn't mess this up. Oh, and this linen came with this kit. It's a 32 count, I think, natural linen. It doesn't say, I think it's what I saw on Google. Alright, so let me count this to make sure it's 28. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. Okay, 28. Alrighty. So, I was able to come home, and then at that time, she was strong enough to where I could just leave her there with her aide, and from 8 to 11, then I would go over, and when her aide would leave, I would, you know, take care of her, do her lunch and everything. So, that's how we did it. I would go back and forth. So I would go over there, do her lunch, and go and do the afternoon stuff. I would go pick up Parker, and I would come home, and then I would, if she needed me again, I would have to leave Parker here for a few minutes and run back over there. If not, I would stay here until my husband came home, and then I would go over there and do dinner and her bath and nighttime routine, and then come back and put Parker to bed. So I was just driving back and forth every day, all day. And when I would be home, I would take care of my pets and my house and do my homework. And then I also kept her Yorkie with me, so I would just take him back and forth because she wasn't able to take care of him. So when I was at her house, I would just take him over there. I would just bring him back and forth with me wherever I was so that he was taken care of. And then she got to the point where she wanted her Yorkie left with her. She got to where she could keep him there. And so that got to be a little bit easier. And we were getting in kind of a routine. And then one night, this is towards like past the middle of February, I messaged my friend who we used to walk for exercise together, and I said, hey, we haven't walked in several months. I said, hey, because it was like 70 degrees outside. I said, hey, when I get done with my mom's, do you want to go for a walk real quick? Because I knew that it would make me feel better the next day to go for a walk, like, you know, energy-wise. And he's like, yeah. So I said, okay. So we walked that night, and I come home, and Mike said, Parker says he has a headache. I'm like, really? Because he doesn't complain of headaches. And he said, yeah. So I talked to Parker, and he's like, yeah, my head's hurting. And I said, okay, well, let me give you some ibuprofen, and we'll see if that helps. He said, okay. And the next morning when I get him up for school, he's burning up, and his head's still hurting. So I knew it was probably COVID. So we had a bunch of at-home tests because of where you could get them mailed to you from the government or whatever. We had the at-home test. So I gave my at-home test, and it immediately turned positive. And so I had to call my mom and be like, well, I have to quarantine from you. I had just given her a shower the night before. It's not like I can be socially distanced when I care for her. So I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if I had caught it, if I had given it to her. So that was Friday. Friday night, Mike gets a fever, gets a headache. Saturday, we all feel bad. My husband, Mike, tested positive for COVID on Saturday. I was already sick on Saturday, but I tested positive on Sunday. So, yeah, we all got COVID. I had to quarantine. and it was awful because I couldn't do anything for my mom, and it was just rough. So I'm fully vaccinated, but I didn't expect to get as sick as I did. I thought because I was vaccinated and they would say, oh, it's mild, whatever. Well, I realized mild doesn't necessarily mean you don't get sick. It just means you have less likelihood of being hospitalized. So Mike and I both, Parker, thankfully, he got better in I'd say 3 or 4 days is how long his fever lasted. Mike and I had fevers for like 5 or 6 days and just sick. Like, we just couldn't do anything. We just laid around. It was all we could do to just, get stuff to drink or whatever. My mother-in-law did porch drop-offs for drinks and food. And one of our friends did a porch drop-off for Parker to have some popsicles and drinks because Parker wasn't eating. And, yeah, we were just really sick. So, I was definitely surprised at how sick we got. Mike was able to work from home, but he could do like a little bit of work and then he would have to sleep or whatever. Parker was supposed to do virtual school, but... Okay, sorry, dog's barking. Parker was supposed to do virtual school. I guess they do that when kids get COVID, so it doesn't count against them for absences. And it took about until Thursday before he was ready to do it, but by the time he was ready to do virtual school, Mike and I were so sick, I could barely get anything done with him. So we actually still are not caught up on his virtual school work because he went back to school on Monday. So he has his regular school, regular homework, and then we've been trying to make up any missed assignments. So the biggest problem is we're just really fatigued. It's getting better every day, so I do feel like it's going to go away, but yeah, the fatigue is probably the hardest part. And so it's not anything I want to go through again. And I was able to go back to my regular routine with my mom yesterday. And while I was sick, she started doing her own meals most of the time and all that because she was forced to. I mean, she couldn't help it. It wasn't like anybody close to us couldn't go over there because we didn't know if she was going to test positive. And her aides still came in, and thankfully my mom never did get sick. My mother-in-law never got sick either, and her and my husband work together and they ride to work together, and they take their lunch break together. And thankfully, my mother-in-law didn't test positive either. She never got sick, so we didn't know what was going to happen with our moms. And we just tried to, we just quarantined and made sure we stayed away from everybody. So, I feel like I'm getting back to normal. It's just, it's going to take us another week or so. Tomorrow's my wedding anniversary, but we're not going to do anything. We're just going to rest. I really have not been able to watch Floss Tube. I have been able to stitch a little bit, but I am so behind on Floss Tube. Because I just haven't had time to watch it. So, because I didn't get to see Mike so much when I would come home, we would watch something together. So what we did is we would have about an hour a day. So what we would do, this is once I came back home for the night. We started watching Yellowstone and then 1883. So that was a lot of fun. That was nice to be able to sit and watch that. We love those shows. If you have not watched Yellowstone or 1883, I highly recommend it. It's kind of complicated how you have to watch it. Like Yellowstone, the first 3 seasons were on the Peacock app. And then the 4th season is on Paramount Network. And then 1883 is on Paramount Network. But, so I don't know. But we figured it out. It's really, really good. And somebody's getting ready to walk by. And I'm sure my dogs are going to go crazy. Hopefully they can be distracted by me talking and not run over there. Some things never change. I got to hop on Zoom last Saturday on the Grace Note Stitcher Zoom, and that was so awesome to be able to hop on there for a little while. I think it was maybe an hour and a half or 2 hours, and then I had to, I got too fatigued. I couldn't do it anymore. But yeah, that was super awesome because I really missed that. And so I'm just ready for things to be, you know. So, and my heart just really goes out to Ukraine and all the people suffering. I just wish there was something I could do more than, you know, more than what I can do. I wish, you know, but one thing I did do was bought patterns from Stitchy Princess to financially support her. And, you know, just, I don't know. I feel kind of helpless. But, yeah, there's so much going on in the world. I hope everybody's doing good. I know many people have reached out to me through one way or another. And it's really helped me get through, you know, tough times. And I so appreciate that. So, school's going good. My grades are good. I've been hanging in there. Spring break is next week. So, I think I can still, because it's online, I think I can still work ahead a little bit. Parker has his 2-week break later in the month because they do a year-round schedule. So they go for 9 weeks and then they get 2 weeks off. Go for 9 weeks, get 2 weeks off. And the only time that it's different is, well, there's actually 2 times. Christmas, they take a month off, and then in the summer, they take 6 weeks off instead of 3 months. So that's how it works. So he gets his 2-week break later this month. So yeah, but hopefully it won't take me too long. I'll have to go run my errand and pick him up from school, and then when I come home, I'll try to upload this video. And maybe next week, since it's my spring break at school, maybe I can do a floss tube. That would be awesome. So, we'll see. Yeah, I hope everybody's doing good, and I hope you have a great weekend. I know a lot of people are doing March Madness. I'm not doing it because I did it last year, and it really just wasn't for me because I like to be able to change my mind, and I would pick projects and people would vote on it, and then I didn't want to stitch on it. So, I decided not to do it this year, and I haven't been able to really vote for anyone. I need to get on Instagram. Maybe tonight I can do that and do some voting. So, I get on Instagram for like 10 minutes, and then I have to go do something else. So, hopefully I can get on there and support everybody. But anyway, so happy Friday, and hopefully I'll get to talk to you again soon. Bye.